Well, aloha. It's Friday. And this week, it actually is Friday. So, welcome to Aloha Friday. And, we're talking about selling your home right now. So, again, right now, the market is still in its same position where we've got low inventory and interest rates are still low as well, which makes high demand. And so if you're interested in selling your home, this is still a really good time to do it. If you're buying, the interest rates are still a good time to do it. Um, you know, housing right is going to continue. The prices are going to continue to rise. So if you're considering getting in the market, this is still a good time, whether you're buying or selling. There's still remote working out there, and the pandemic is resurging again, which keeping people back in their homes again. So you may want to look for someplace that's a little more comfortable for yourself. All right. So let's talk about where we left off last time. Was we had put our house, we had an open house, and let's say the open house is over, and then the next thing you know, that day has come when you receive an offer, or in this market, multiple offers for your home. And on that day, you're going to face a question you may not have previously considered and you should consider. How do you know if an offer is the best one for you? Now, your listing agent can be a big help here. They'll understand and help you suss out the merits and faults of an offer, because believe it or not, it's not always about the price. One buyer's beautiful high offer may not look so good anymore. For example, if you discover it's contingent upon you moving out quicker than you thought you should, or conversely, you may prefer speed of escrow over price, particularly if you need to move to like a new city. Your listing agent will have a sense of what you want financially and personally, and can help you determine whether that offer at hand satisfies those goals. Now, before the first offer rolls in, here's what you need to know about offer evaluation, including the main factors that should go into making a decision to accept or reject with your agent. Now, there are 5 important things other than price to consider when evaluating an offer. First, earnest money deposit. One important consideration when weighing an offer is the size of the earnest money deposit. The earnest money deposit is the sum of cash the buyer is offering to fork over when the sale of the agreement is signed, to show he is serious about buying your home. This money, which is typically held in escrow, or held by the title company, held in escrow, will go towards the buyer's down payment at closing. A standard earnest money deposit is about 3% of the cost of the home. If a buyer tries to back out for no good reason, the seller can typically keep the earnest money deposit. Therefore, the higher the earnest money deposit, the stronger the offer. Contingencies. Most offers have contingencies. These are provisions that must be met for the transaction to go through, or the buyer is entitled to walk away from the deal and keep the earnest money deposit. Contracts with fewer contingencies are more likely to reach closing and in a timely fashion. Now, here's the 5 most common contingencies. The home inspection contingency. This gives the buyer the right to have the home professionally inspected and request repairs by a certain date, typically within 5 to 7 days of the purchase agreement being signed. Depending on where you live, you may be required to have home repairs or structural defects, building code violations, or safety issues taken care of. Now, most home repairs are negotiable. And matter of fact, you as the seller, you don't even have to answer the request for repairs if you don't want to. You can just let them sit there, because it's really not part of the deal. Appraisal contingencies. For a mortgage lender to approve a home buyer's loan, the home must pass an appraisal. That's the process during which the property's value is assessed by a neutral third party. The appraisal verifies that the home is worth at least enough money to cover the price of the mortgage. Now, in the event the buyer can't make their mortgage payments, the lender can foreclose on the home and sell the property to recoup some of its costs. Generally, the home buyer is responsible for paying for the appraisal, which typically takes place within 14 days of the sales contract being signed. Financing contingency, also called a loan contingency or mortgage contingency. A finance contingency protects the buyer in the event their lender doesn't approve their mortgage. Although the time frame for financing contingencies vary, mortgage lenders report the buyer generally have about 20 days to obtain mortgage approval. Sale of home contingencies. Now, the buyer may need to sell their house to buy your house. So they usually have a window of 30 to 90 days to sell their house before the sales agreement is voided. So this contingency puts you, the seller, at a disadvantage because you can't control when the buyer sells their house in time. And finally, a title contingency. Before approving a mortgage, a lender will require the borrower to clear title. Now, there's title contingencies don't happen all that often, but sometimes they do, and it ensures that the buyer is becoming the rightful owner of the property. Now, down payment. Depending on the type of mortgage, the buyer must make a down payment on the house. The size of that down payment can affect the strength of the offer. In some cases, a buyer's down payment amount is related to the home loan they're taking out. Your chief concern as a seller, of course, is for the transaction to close. And for that to happen, the buyer's mortgage has to be approved. Generally, a larger down payment signals a buyer's financial wherewithal to complete the sale. The average down payment, according to the National Association of Realtors, is 10%. Some mortgage products, such as FHA and VA, allow for even lower down payments. If by chance the appraisal comes in higher than your contract sale price, the buyer with a higher down payment will more likely be able to cover the difference with a large amount of cash that they have available. You know, sometimes, because you have to bridge that, if the appraisal does not come in for the sales price, then you have to bridge the difference. And the more money you're putting down means that you may be able just to bridge it with your down payment. Now, there's also all cash offers. Now, when a buyer comes in, when the buyer plunks down all cash, that means that there's no loan to approve. An all cash offer is ideal for both parties. The buyer doesn't have to fulfill an appraisal contingency, and the lender, there's no loan contingency. So, you know, the financing contingency goes away. As always, having a sales contract with fewer contingencies means there are fewer ways for the deal to fall through. And then closing date. Settlement or closing date is the day when both parties sign the final paperwork and make the sale official. Typically, the whole process from accepting an offer to closing takes between 30 and 60 days. The average closing time is probably 42 days, but in today's market, 30 days, if it's all cash, it could even be 14 days. So about 3 days before closing, the buyer receives a closing disclosure from the lender, which he compares with the loan estimate he received. And if there are material differences between the buyer's loan estimate and the closing disclosure, the closing can't happen until these amounts are reviewed and approved, but that's pretty rare. Some transactions can take more time, depending on the buyer's financing. For example, the average closing time for an FHA loan is 43 days, according to Ellie Mae. So whether you want a slow or quick settlement will depend on your circumstances. If you've already purchased your next home, for instance, you probably want to close ASAP. On the other hand, you may want a longer closing period, say 60 days, if you need the proceeds from the sale to purchase your new home. Well, if you want the proceeds to purchase your new home, I think even faster is better. So when should you make a counteroffer? Depending on the circumstances, you may be in the position to make a counteroffer, but every transaction is different based on the particular market conditions and your home. In some circumstances, you can be gutsy with your counteroffer. In others, it might serve your goals better to give in to the buyer's demands. Your agent can provide helpful insight about when and why a counteroffer will be the right thing for you. In today's market, if it's not going to meet your needs, counteroffer, because it's a seller's market right now. You are in the driving seat. If you're in a seller's market, like we just talked about, the homes are selling quickly for more than asking, and you receive multiple offers, your agent may recommend you counteroffer with an amount higher than you would have in a buyer's market. If you choose to write a counteroffer, your agent will negotiate on your behalf to make sure you get the best deal for you. Yes, remember, your agent is your fiduciary. His job is to make sure that he takes care of you first. Okay? Now, you can make a counteroffer. If you have multiple offers, you can make a multiple counteroffer. Okay? So just be aware. Now, when does an offer become a contract? In a nutshell, a deal is under contract when the buyer's offer or the seller's counteroffer is agreed upon and signed by both parties. At that point, the clock starts ticking. Okay, all the contingencies have to be met, and we're in escrow. All right. Well, next week, we're going to talk about negotiating the offer. All right. So you have a great weekend. And if you need to get a hold of me, in the comment section is my email address, jamie@jamiebarberhomes.com. And this is, you have a great weekend. The weather, it's supposed to get a little cooler here in Southern California. Not much, but a little. And remember, it's Aloha Friday. No work till Monday. Really, unless you're a real estate agent or you work in retail. But for the rest of you all, have a great weekend and aloha. Talk to you next week when, again, we're going to talk about negotiating an offer. This is Jamie Barber with Jamie Barber Homes saying have a great weekend